Okay, so our last transformation, we've talked about translations, which is just moving left, right, up or down. We talked about reflections, which is flipping. And we've done rotations, which is turning the shapes. Now we're going to talk about dilations. So all a dilation does is it makes the shapes bigger or smaller. Okay, so it's staying in the same place. It's just getting bigger or smaller. And so the fancy words that they're going to use is enlargement and reduction. So enlargement means bigger because it has the word large in it. And reduction means smaller. And so we have to know how much bigger or how much smaller the shape is getting. So that's what a scale factor is the number of times bigger / smaller the shape gets. So to do a dilation, to get your new points, you got to multiply the old points by the scale factor. So the scale factor is going to be a number. So we're doing 2 examples. It says dilate the figure below by a factor of 3, and we have to graph the triangle. So the first triangle, they only wrote the points, so we actually have to graph it on this little graph down here. So, before I scroll away, 2, 2, 3, 0, negative 1, negative 1. Here we go. 2, 2, and that was A. 3, 0 was B. And negative 1, negative 1, what was it? Yes, negative 1, negative 1. Let's see. Great. On formative, you would connect these with straight lines, not crooked lines like I just drew. Okay, so that's the original shape. Now I am making it bigger by a factor of 3. So what I'm going to do with these points is I'm going to multiply by 3, everything times 3, both the numbers. So I got to do 2 times 3 for the first number and 2 times 3 for the second number. And that's going to give us our new points. So if you don't know what 2 times 3 is, you would type that in Desmos. But I know that 2 times 3 is 6. And this is our new A. So now this is A prime, which we'll do in a different color. A prime. So 2 times 3 is 6. Second number, 2 times 3 is 6. And that's my new point. So we're doing all of these times 3. Times 3. So for point B, we're doing the first number, so 3 times my factor 3. And then we're doing the second number, 0 times my factor 3. So 3 times 3, if you don't know, type it in, is 9. 0 times 3, 0. Last point is my number, negative 1, times my factor 3. And the second number, negative 1, times my factor 3. So C prime, negative 1 times 3, you can type that in if you're not sure about the negatives. Negative 3, negative 1 times 3 again, negative 3. And now we just got to graph it on the graph. So here we go. 6, 6. That's new A. So now it's A prime. 9, comma 0, B prime. C was negative 3, negative 3, C prime. You will connect, I'll actually do it with a straight line this time. You're connecting your points with a straight line. So we're noticing that this is obviously, it's still the same shape. It's still a triangle. I didn't it's not like a triangle and then a rectangle. It's just a much bigger triangle than the original. And we know it's going to be bigger because this was a number bigger than 1. So when it's a number bigger than 1, obviously that it's going to make it bigger. And our shape is bigger. So we're good. Yay. Let's do one more example. Same idea. We are dilating by a factor of 1/2 this time. So we're going to graph the picture first. So, okay, can I remember this? Negative 8, 6, 10, 4, negative 2, negative 6, negative 8, 6, dot. That was A. 10, 4 was B. Whoops, B. C was negative 2, negative 6. This is a big shape. C. And we're going to actually take our time and connect with straight lines. Okay. So we're still going to do the same thing. Now, when you're doing this in formative, they're not going to give you these points. They're going to give you the picture and ask, what are the points? Like, you got to write those down first before you can multiply. So next step, we are multiplying. What are we multiplying by this time? Our factor 1/2. So we're doing everything times 1/2. Times 1/2. Times 1/2. Okay, great. So we're doing -8, our first number, times 1/2. And then 6 times 1/2. Same for the other points. All right, so if you are uncomfortable multiplying by a fraction, make sure you're typing that in Desmos. So let's type that in. So we would do -8 times 1/2. 1/2 is -4. Okay, so that means over here, for my new a prime, the first number is now -4. 6 times 1/2. If you don't know what that is, type it in Desmos. I know 6 times 1/2 is 3. Great. For B, we're multiplying those by 1/2. So we got 10 times 1/2. And we got 4 times 1/2. Okay, so that's going to give me 10 times 1/2. We would type in Desmos. We would get 5. 4 times 1/2, 2. And our last point, C. So we got -2 times 1/2 and -6 times 1/2. Especially with the negatives, if you're unsure, type it in Desmos. So here we go. Last one is C prime. So -2 times 1/2 is -1. -6 times 1/2 is -3. So now we're going to graph those. So what was it? -4, 3. So -4, 3. This is now A prime. B was at 5, 2. B prime. C's at -1, -3. C prime. And we're going to connect those with a nice straight line, which you would do in formative as well. Okay. And there's my new shape. Now we are noticing this time, since our factor was smaller than 1, we know that means our shape's going to get smaller. And it did. Our new shape was smaller than the original shape. If you multiply and you got a bigger shape and it was a fraction, then you know you multiplied wrong. So that's an easy way to check yourself. So you guys are going to go ahead and start the formative. Make sure you are writing out these coordinates first. You cannot do all the multiplying niceness if you don't have the coordinates. So write them down. Go ahead and start the formative.